What is wrong with you? I swear this girl is brain dead. I'm petty and I will burn bridges. After today, nobody will want you. I mean, you just can't do anything right. These were all things said to me or other girls I played competitive basketball with. And worst of all, these are the PG-13 versions. These were said at such a young age, 15 to 17 years old, the most impressionable years of someone's life. I would often leave practices and games wondering how someone in their 40s and 50s could say such things to young women. These people were supposed to be my role models. Did they not realize that the words they spoke over us would be branded into our brains for life? Did they ever really even care about anything but numbers on a scoreboard? I have witnessed time and time again young girls lose their confidence in basketball, but even worse, outside the sport entirely. And it's not just within basketball that this is happening. It's happening within all sports. The American Academy of Pediatrics states that 70% of youth drop out of sports by 13, partially due to burnout and lack of enjoyment. The NCAA found that 30% of athletes felt extremely overwhelmed, with 25% feeling mentally exhausted. As a society, we cannot and will not accept the fact that over a quarter of our athletes feel this way. In the next 10 minutes, I will identify the reality of toxic sports culture, where it stems from, and what we can do to combat it. The solution is simple. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. In order to do this, we must first understand toxic sports culture. When I was in high school, we played a game over Christmas break, and we were playing terribly. Tensions were high on and off the court, and we ended up only losing the game by 2. Later in the locker room, after a discussion over what went wrong in the game, my assistant coach interjected, complaining about a girl who came off the court and did not give him a high five. The game was intense, and in the heat of the moment, someone on the team could have purposely avoided his high five. Wrong. But it's also very possible that one of the girls just missed his hand. In his defense, it would be appropriate to address concerns over attitude problems on the team directly and appropriately. However, it would not be appropriate to follow his complaint with what he said. I'm petty and I will burn bridges. How are we teaching our young athletes to behave with these kinds of statements? What bridges are worth burning over an unintentional, or God forbid, even intentional missed high five? I wish I could say this was the only toxic sports moment I experienced. When I played travel basketball, I remember one of my teammates was struggling very badly during one of our games. She was by far one of our best players, but she was just having an off day, a universal human experience. Instead of encouraging this girl and helping her learn through this failure, my coach decided to say this after the game. I mean, you just can't do anything right. The impact statements like these can have on young athletes can last for years. I know this because I have been subject to comments like these, and there was a time where I certainly felt useless, incapable, and worthless. For a lot of non-athletes in the room, this treatment may shock you. But for a lot of people who played competitive sports, this treatment might be your reality like it was mine. This is the reality of toxic sports culture. But is all lost within the sports world? No. I believe we can make the changes so that sports are not just tearing down, but teaching us important life lessons. But this begins with changes from the top, coaches and parents. The sayings I mentioned were all said to me by coaches. During the season, often athletes are spending as much time with their coach as they would their parents. When athletes are surrounded by toxic sports language, this will affect the way they view the world and in turn themselves. Coaches and parents are put in situations where they offer feedback to these athletes, and not all of this feedback is going to be positive. There is a time to uplift, and there is a time to correct. That's biblical. But when it comes to this feedback, these important mentors must learn to balance better. It's all about finding the balance between being an even-tempered and energetic supporter. Even-tempered support is conveyed in a calm and even-keeled manner, and they can read a tense situation and know how to bring the temperature down. If a player is extremely frustrated at his or her performance, an even-tempered supporter is not going to scream at the athlete, but rather find a solution calmly. The athlete knows what to expect with this kind of supporter. On the other hand, we have energetic supporters. Energetic supporters get the athlete pumped up, and this may include yelling and aggression, but it is never directed towards personal degradation. They get on you when you make a mistake, but man, they are your biggest fans when you do something right. Energetic support is always with the intent to make you a better athlete and person. The athlete knows what to expect with this kind of supporter. In both of these styles of mentorship, coaches and parents are fair and do not blindside the athlete with their actions, but rather offer an expectation. Supporters who can successfully balance these two styles help the athlete to understand that there are far greater lessons to be learned off the court and field. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. Sports were made to prepare us for life, so we should learn from the life lessons they simulate. When I was in high school, I was on a team that had tremendous success. We had not only beaten a team, we had just demolished them. I also played what was probably one of the best games of my life. I was on cloud 9. As I was leaving the gym, I noticed a girl who looked very upset about her performance in the game. She sat outside the gym crying to her coach, and her coach sat there and listened to her, consoling her over her frustrations. This taught me something very important. Although our record was far greater than theirs, we had serious playoff contentions and we were a much better team. I stood there, feeling envious of the girl who sat crying next to her coach over her poor performance. Why? Because the coach was willing to sit with this girl and work through her emotions and help her get through this hard time. By no means was the coach allowing this girl to sulk or feel sorry for herself. She was on this player all game about her attitude, her effort, and her emotions. However, this coach recognized balance. She knew when she needed to be an even-tempered supporter and an energetic supporter, and she stepped in and handled the situation appropriately. That is where my jealousy stemmed from, because I had never experienced that from a coach in my life. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. Yes, changes need to begin with coaches and parents, but they are not solely to blame. Sometimes in life, we are put in situations that challenge us and push us to our limits. As athletes, in these moments, we have two opportunities. We can either cave to our circumstances or learn to rise above them. Although I did not have support from my coaches growing up, I was so lucky to have the best support at home from my parents. When I would experience these difficulties and hardships, my dad would constantly remind me of the three things in life that I can control: my attitude, my effort, and my emotions. This was something my father loosely picked up out of a saying he got out of a Tim Tebow book. Tim Tebow's versions say, we can control a few things: our attitude, our effort, our focus, and how we go about treating our teammates. Well, it's apparent in my father's rendition that he was not so concerned with how I treated my teammates. But in all seriousness, attitude, effort, and emotions are the three things in sports and in life that we can control. First off, your attitude. Are you responding to adversity with disrespect or deference? Adversity in this scenario could look like a coach speaking to you in a condescending tone. In these moments, it's important to remember that these are situations you cannot control. However, your attitude, you can. You could respond to your coach with a poor attitude or even match the energy they're approaching you with. This will only exasperate the situation. Or you could choose to speak to him or her with respect. This doesn't mean you're always going to agree with the things that they're saying or even the ways that they're saying. However, it does mean that you can show them decent human respect, something they may never show you in return. But still, act in the way you wish others would treat you. Be the change you wish to see. The second thing we can control is our efforts. Are you trying your absolute best? Some people define their success based on numbers. How many points, rebounds, goals, assists, touchdowns, you name it. I was this person. There was a time where my success was fully defined in the numbers on a scoreboard. It took me a long time to realize I am far worth more than 13 points. I'm worth more than 8 rebounds. I am worth more than 2 blocks. I now define whether a game was successful or not based on how hard I'm working. Am I sprinting on every play? Am I outworking my opponent? Am I doing the most with the minutes that I'm receiving? Sometimes I'm not always in control of the outcome, but I can always control my efforts, regardless of my circumstances. Redefine success by putting as much emphasis on your efforts as you would winning. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. The third and final thing you can control are your emotions. In sports, emotions are at play all the time. When you're so dedicated to your craft, you become so passionate about winning, and sometimes in that process, you let your emotions get the best of you. Imagine you just played a big game, but you didn't perform how you wanted. Instead of accepting this hard truth, you blame and disrespect your coaches and teammates. You let your emotions get the best of you. What good is this? Take accountability for your mistakes and learn from them. Not every performance is going to be your best, so learn to have grace with yourself. Grace and accountability are not mutually exclusive. Find a way to balance the two. As athletes, understanding and striving to not only focus on what you can control is difficult, but it's necessary. It's something you will always have to keep yourself in check with, and it doesn't just happen overnight. But regardless, you should always strive to focus on controlling your attitude, your effort, and your emotions. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. Often, I reflect on my basketball career. This last season, we lost the game at the buzzer, and it was partially my fault. I was put in the game late to block a girl's shot, but I missed it. Later that night, once I got to my hotel, I called my dad crying. Through tearful eyes, I told him, I wish I never played basketball. This was something I genuinely believed. I wish I had never picked up that stupid ball. I wouldn't have had to go through all the things I went through. My life would be so much better. I can confidently say today that that is the farthest thing from the truth. Although yes, I've endured some hard seasons on the court and in turn off the court. I've cried over the treatment, the decisions, you name it. But I wouldn't change anything. So, although I am the farthest thing from perfect, no, nothing is wrong with me. I'm not brain dead. People do see me beyond my mistakes, and there is a lot I can do right. Redefine success. Find the reward beyond the scoreboard. Thank you.